What's up, guys? This is Inferiority. Pretty much I'm just coming here today to kind of give you a brief overview of Lightbinder, which is the support class, surprisingly, considering the amount of damage this class can do, especially AoE, for Skyforge. Now, it's basically light space spells. It has the usual let's mitigate some damage, some shields. There's actually a unique teleport, and I'll get more into these abilities later. Right now, I'm just importing now report. It's one of the little 1 to 3 man person dungeons you can do. Right now, it's just a case of I was given a mission to come back here to do something, which we'll get to a little bit later when I run across that NPC. Right now, I'm just more or less going to show off some of the abilities and give you a chance to see what you think. You'll notice these little yellow balls that are growing up here. Essentially what they do is they can heal if you run across them if you're missing health. On the upside to that, those little silver little capsules that look like gray Pokeballs, essentially is they contain loot within inside of them. There's other type shapes too, but there's not really going to be much different ones. You'll see some glowing, which usually indicates rarity. As you can see, there's a yellow ball. I'm missing a slight amount of health. There's also the item ball. Now, here in a second, I'm going to show you a couple of these little abilities from the class. That right there is my number 4, which basically throws a shield on me to prevent X amount of damage, as well as to me and my party. Those little bitty dots that it cast on me are ones that essentially let me stun some targets and do a little bit of damage. That ground slam is supposed to be a knockback in damage, but doesn't do very much. As for that little deal, obviously you see it's a teleport. It works 2 ways. I can throw something there, I can hit the button again and teleport there, or a friendly ally can click it and teleport now. As you can see there, I tried to be sneaky and just walk by, but he didn't let me. Right there, you'll see a lot of little left clicks. Once we get the boss, I'll explain more abilities and what I'm using. Most of this trash right now, it's just random abilities, dodges in here and there. And you'll notice a lot of times, sometimes I'll take damage, sometimes I won't, because no offense, there's very few things that I feel threatened. Here is the first quote-unquote boss inside here for this dungeon. If you're wondering what I was doing, I was checking the map to make sure I didn't pass the NPC. The first ability I do is shoots 3 little targets at the boss, and then you'll see me spamming my number 1 3 times at him, because it's my biggest damage dealer. The little dot dot dot, as you can see right there, is more or less just a build up. It has a decent amount of damage to it. It's not great, but it helps me recharge my energy for my more powerful attacks. Like right there, I use my 1 again. I don't have to use too many other ones. My right click is kind of an AoE, and I'll show you that later on when we come to more, when we get around to the eggs after this boss. There is a shield you'll see me throw on, and eventually you'll see it disperse. It does it like just now. It does damage to the enemies that are near me. There's different items and stuff you'll notice as you collect gear that give buff to different abilities, and one of the abilities I got is it does more damage when that disperses to enemies near me. You'll also notice that the bosses, I know I didn't touch on it quickly, but the bosses themselves have layered health. It kind of reminds me, if you've ever seen, what was it, Sword Art, the original, the first season, where they had the bosses that had the little tier health and stuff like that. It's kind of what it reminds me of. Right here, I got a little part of the little quest chain is I gotta destroy the eggs and then basically do that. Right there was my right click. Essentially, it's a massive charge pulse. I lob at something and it does massive. And honestly, it does a ridiculous amount of damage. To be perfectly honest, with you, this whole freaking class, for being support, can put out a significant amount of damage. And I mean, so far, I've already played quite a bit of time with the Berserker. Now that damage is insane, but you're squishy as shit. So it's kind of amazing the amount of damage I can do with range right here and kite. A lot of things to be able to do the amount of damage I do. As you see, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to pull that one. Here in a short minute, I should do that gather. You see the little blue circle? It's another one of my abilities. It'll suck up all enemies nearby and take them there, do damage, and then slightly stun them for a moment. Which kind of helps me set up for right-clicking and doing massive AoE damage. Looks like I have one more egg patch left before I can move on. You'll notice a little pop-up right there. It says the E in a little symbol. That's the finisher. When something gets, it's considered your finisher. Not your ult, but your finisher. What it does is when a target's low enough health and this quote-unquote finisher can actually kill them, you can hit that key. And of course there is a cooldown for this, so you can't just back to back to back on enemies. Otherwise, the little bonus deals where do finisher moves would be incredibly easy to complete. Not that they're all that difficult now. And it just basically does a kind of cool animation based on your class. Here's the second boss. This one is a little more difficult, especially considering the fact that in this dungeon, I accidentally got queued into it for very hard. So while it seems like for the most part I've done easy, this is probably the first encounter where you'll notice I take some damage, and it's not always a case of I don't give a shit. Now you'll notice when I get a little water shield on him right there, she's out, and you need to target her down. Obviously, because you can that little water shield decreases the amount of damage you can even do to him. So it seems like it's a wasted effort to even consider targeting him. She'll know those little bubbles down. It'll hit you, do a significant amount of damage, and then it'll do like a dot damage over time ability. Essentially, at this point, you're just running around using your abilities and just trying to kite this gentleman right here so he doesn't kill you. She'll go hide. Bam, yeah, I kind of didn't dodge that one, but thankfully I still had a partial shield up. Go back to targeting him. Usually it's a chain of build up, do the little 3-hit deal, and then lob number 1 at him to do the most amount of damage, at least based on the abilities I have right now, and then go back to spamming my left click. You'll see it here and there. I don't remember if I do it again in this particular dungeon, but like you can hold left click and it does that laser beam you probably saw earlier. Again, it's more kiting, more deal, and it'll just be this back to back to back. While we're waiting for me to kill this boss, I guess I'll touch on the game obviously is Skyforge. If you're watching this, you already know. This right now is the first North American closed beta, and this is my first interpretation of playing the Lightbinder, which was the class I seemed least interested in, so it was well, ended up being the second class, but the class I decided to focus on for this particular beta. And it actually surprised me. I thought it was going to be a very weak class. I mean, it's supposed to be the game's support class. Your job is to do a little bit of damage, boost your allies' damage, and a little bit of your own as well, and then pop shields on stuff to help mitigate damage. I mean, because there's no real direct healing in this game, minus some items. You'll notice down there, my little F1 key, the little deal, I can use that once in combat, and it will heal me for so much, and then after combat ends it goes on a 2-minute timer before it comes down. As you see, I've taken a lot of damage and I'm gathering those little yellow orbs. They're really that's the kind of way that they're stopping from having to need a healer class, because as you damage bosses and mechanics and mobs, it drops those little yellow orbs, so it's kind of a very skill-based heal system. In other words, you're your own healer. So if you die, most likely it's your own damn fault. You can't blame anybody else. That's one thing I like about this game. It is very skill-based. Granted, I do believe that there are some abilities that just point-blank make anything too OP. But for the most part, the game is based around skill end of itself, using your abilities, using combos. There's not like a whole lot of combos built with this particular class as of yet, what I've noticed. Now there are some where this does more damage after I've done this, but you'll notice like stuff with Berserker and stuff like that, it's left click, right click, left click, right click, same thing with Paladin and stuff like that, and you do deals. You see a little purple thing, boss loot, essentially. One thing I notice here is I do that again to suck them up and then do damage. Unfortunately, these guys, I can't really 1 or 2 shot right in the deal. I actually have to do this when it comes to very hard and very hard. It becomes difficult, but then again, no offense, this is how difficult most mobs should be to me, as far as I'm concerned, with me being a support class. Yes, I'm more detailed into doing damage than I am supporting. The only support thing I really give 2 hoots about is my shield and the teleport, which I need to get in the habit of using more, but for most of these 1 to 3 mans, it's not very important if you're doing it solo. I find that I'll probably be using them a lot more once I get more into bringing friends in, which I'll try to get some videos up on that, of doing 2 or 3 people in a dungeon, and then maybe at some point doing some PvP and 5-man content. You notice I killed them, and then I realized, oh crap, hey, that quest guy's there. Now this was pretty fun. Obviously this is the first time I came across this. It's part of my quest chain, or part of a quest chain leading from an area I was in earlier, and it sent me here to talk to this guy to find out some information. The story in this game's actually pretty decent. I wouldn't say it's like overly amazing, but on the up and up, it's pretty detailed. I kind of like the aspect of that you're an immortal and your whole purpose in this is to become a kick-ass god. Um, I kind of gives a little bit of God of War feel to it. The graphics in this game I'd like to touch on are incredibly beautiful. Yeah, was not expecting that guy right there to have to attack him. And unfortunately, you'll notice a lot of mobs or boss type mechanics use mechanics based on other classes. Another game that did this pretty well too was Rift. They basically, that way it kind of keeps mechanics clean. You're not having to create, a whole new system for mobs and give them abilities that players aren't already used to. So fighting against a paladin, we see how I do. Obviously, there's this little lunge thing that normally would hurt me significantly if you caught me. I get a lot of dodges off in this, but I still get hit for petty damage. As you notice like this, I'm able to move around and not even face him because there's a lock-on feature. Like you'll see the little bitty red around him, like in a square. Essentially, if you have that over a target, you can hit the lock-on key, and no matter what you do, that'll be the target you keep firing on. It's really useful. You can do that, and you can use the tab system as well. If you have a locked-on target and you want to change which target, 9 times out of 10, I just hit the lock-on key to disable it, and then select another one. It just seems fast, because basically I just keep doing it with my pinky. This guy, like I said, it seemed like this fight drug out for a lot longer than it should have. You'll notice I don't use the whole knockback thing, as I slightly mentioned earlier, because I was kind of hasted through the video, was more of a case of I don't use it, because right now, even when I had an item that increases the amount of knockback it did, but did less damage, it didn't really move any of the targets. So it just seems like it was a really bad AoE. I did report a bug on, or at least what I would assume a bug, that it's supposed to do more knockback, but they haven't messaged me back yet, and I don't know if it'll be fixed. As you can see, apparently he disappears. What do all good bad guys do? They disappear before you can kill him, even though you should be able to easily do so. And back to target towards the very end to fight the last boss. I'll have a couple more trash mobs here to kill, collect some items, collect some spare change, and so on and so forth. I mean, to be honest, as far as AoE goes, when I'm targeting, I spam right click like no other, and then I'll build back up for it and right click, and then occasionally you'll see I'll try to use that ability to regroup. Unfortunately, that wonderful quasar that groups them up together and damages them for me is on a cooldown. If it wasn't, dear God, this class, I would just run around and kill everything. It'd be, use the pun, but God mode. These guys, I didn't really care if I dodged stuff. I mean, I try to dodge bubbles because technically inside those bubbles you're getting suffocated and drowning. It's kind of a shitty way to die if you ask me, but it is what it is. It's an interesting mechanic that they give those naiads. For the most part, I won't dodge a whole lot. But back to the game while I'm clearing this trash. Again, it's in beta and there's a lot of promise. They talk. I've watched the Russian. I watched a lot of Twitch streams. This video recording is more just a case of kind of a test pilot type deal. It'll probably be uploaded like this, even with the poor narration. So please forgive me, guys. This is the first one. So I hope I'll probably do later videos more that cover, mechanics, stuff about more information about the game, and then maybe like when I do other classes, I'll do that, or when I do some other dungeons, maybe kind of give you a look at the 1 to 3 man dungeons. When I jump into the 5-man dungeon, I'll give you a preview of that. We'll just kind of play it by ear for now. We'll see if this goes anywhere and whether I continue to record more videos or just this be a one-shot mechanic to make Cake happy. As you notice right here, this boss is pretty simple. She'll eventually put a shield on herself. She'll summon these little ads. Kill the ads, they're easy, even in deal. See, there's the little laser I was talking about holding it left-handed. Wasn't sure I still did again, but hey, looky there, we're good to go. Again, she has a little shield up, you gotta kill the little ads. I mean, you don't have to, but eventually they'll get too many. Then you'll finish destroying the shield on her, and then just go back to DPSing her. She'll shoot you with a little bitty water bolt here and there. You're gonna take damage, there's no avoiding that. But you'll notice she'll shoot like this big puddle at you, kind of like you've seen earlier with the other naiads. You just essentially just avoid it. Run around if you take some damage, collect you some health from the little health orbs when they drop. Otherwise, it's just rinse and repeat. Kill the ads, blow up her shield, blow her up, avoid stuff. Pretty simple. There's a finisher again. I kind of like those. The one for this class isn't all amazing, but for the most part, it serves a purpose. It's nice to basically hit that and be able to forget the mob, if anything else. Um, but my first takes on this one, the dungeons are interesting. I definitely could see promise. Obviously, there's the fact that if you do them over and over, you eventually unlock more stuff to them. Like you do it so many times, I guess you would say the grade of level of it, because the difficulty for dungeons changes, and the rewards that you get are random, and it changes every 40 minutes unless you happen to be in there during the 40-minute time period, which is kind of unique because the fact that it just means that loot's never going to be a set loot table. Like if you play World of Warcraft, you go into set X dungeon, this boss is going to drop this loot every time, or one of these few items every time. So it kind of gives a little bit of variety to it, and I kind of like it. I did watch some streams though, as when it comes to these dungeons and these fights, that the more people you bring in, it does significantly get more difficult. There's one other dungeon that I didn't think that was all that hard, but when he brought two other people into it, the mechanics started really biting them in the butt. But I mean, the most part of these, it has promise. I mean, I hope it really works out. I want to test the 5-mans. I'm kind of curious how they're going to pull the raids off. I mean, because you don't need healers, so how do you not throw too many orbs? I mean, it's going to be a lot of communication if you think about it, because you have to stop people from that's taking like a small tick of health running over those health orbs. You're going to have to essentially say, hey, reserve that side of the room for tanks, or this orbs for tanks, because they're going to need it. Because again, while tanks like paladins have mitigation and their whole goal is to control the boss, what do you do? Anyways, guys, thank you for watching the video, and it's been real. I'll see you next time, and let's hope this gets a little bit better. Thanks.